liberty, and justice for all.
Great. Our first call to the public, is there anyone that wishes to address this committee? Hearing none, seeing none, we will move to our agenda items. I would entertain a motion to approve the replacement of one Sheriff Road Patrol deputy.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support, information, discussion.
We had one road patrol deputy who is retiring. We're going to backfill that position with the animal control officer, which then creates a vacancy in the animal control officer, which is the item that follows. And we have someone from the academy that we sponsored through a program last year who would like to move into that position as the animal control officer and has already been working and shadowing with us.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? All in favor of moving this to Wednesday night signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The same. That brings us to agenda item B. I would entertain a motion to approve the replacement of one animal control officer.
So moved.
Support.
I have motion and support. Discussion, information, backfilling.
Yep, backfilling. She already works for us, or she was sponsored by the academy, and so she's the next in the line to be hired, and she's very interested in doing this.
All right. All in favor of moving this to Wednesday night?
Is this their first job then, kind of?
Well, first job as a corrections officer, or as a deputized officer.
Oh.
You know, I've only had to call on the animal control one time out at my place. That was because there was an injured fawn in the yard. And the officer came out and dispatched the animal with his sidearm. I take it that this person is going to, will be able to do that. So.
Yeah. All in favor of moving this to Wednesday night signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that brings us to the added agenda item. I apologize that we did not modify the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. That is my error. Dr. Boggs just presented us with this information related to the Law Enforcement Officers Regional Training Commission. And one of our deputized officers in the prosecutor's office, John Cecil, would like to join this. Dr. Boggs, can you give us some details?
So we're already a member of this for the Sheriff's Department. It's free to us. The state gives, I think it's $250 a year. That comes to us. We then pay the membership fee of the $250. It's a per officer fee. The Sheriff's been part of it for a long time. The other departments are. Because he's a deputized officer in the prosecutor's office, it just requires a separate approval. And as you can tell on the second page of your packet, there is a selected motion there and resolution that will have to be filled out for him to be able to join. But it's at no cost to us. It provides training as part of the consortium.
So then I would entertain a motion to grant approval to John Cecil of the Police Department Office of the Sheriff to become a participating member of the Law Enforcement Officers Regional Training Commission.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. Questions, discussion?
Yeah, I guess I have a question. I don't know anything about this organization. I assume that whatever training they deliver will be consistent with the way we train our officers,
Yes.
law enforcement personnel.
So this is the statewide continuing education service. So almost all of our officers around here in different departments belong to it. That's where they get their continuing ed from.
And there's no political or
No.
ideological part of it that we might
No.
object to.
Okay, all in favor of moving this to tomorrow night, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. That will be added to tomorrow night's agenda. That brings us to our second call to the public. Anybody? Not seeing any. I will declare this meeting adjourned.
To order, if we can stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, our first agenda item, I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 240508 of intent to prepare a materials management plan for Shiawassee County.
Support.
Moved and supported. I'll support that. Materials management plan, Larry.
So a couple of things before we get started. We cannot just repurpose the previous board, which is the Solid Waste Committee. This resolution recreates a board or creates a new board, and then the next one you're going to be appointing members to the board if you so choose, so that we can then dissolve the other board.
That was my question. Is the solid waste board, does that need to be dissolved, or is it dissolved by the state legislature?
It was dissolved by the state
Okay.
legislature, and they did not put in their legislation a mechanism for transferring one to the other, but they put in the mechanism for the creation of the new one. So we have gone through the process of creating it. And then the second part of the resolution deals with our actual notice to the state, which I'll let Larry.
So, in the end of 2022 legislature, they passed an update to the Part 115 solid waste law, which was to set benchmarks down the road for increasing the state's recycling rate. I think the state is somewhere around 17% or 19%. They want to see that get up to like 30, 40, and then even like 50% recycling. For us, what does that mean? Well, we're not the most advanced when it comes to recycling in our county. Some areas have more recycling opportunities than others. For instance, the city of Durand has recycling every other week, which is with a single hauler company. And so there's a certain requirement for municipalities over 5,000. So in this county, it only affects the city of Owasso. They are going to be mandated to offer curbside recycling by 2026. So that's going to be up to Owasso to figure out. However, they will be included as part of our plan. We're just not telling them how they're going to get there. They have to figure that out. And the options that I see that they're going to deal with are either single hauler or mandating, I think they have like 6 haulers. All 6 haulers have to offer that to their residents. So they're going to work through that. For us, it's more affecting the rural areas. So in the statute, for every 10,000 residents in our county that are not covered by curbside, they have to have a location where they can bring their recycling up to 24 hours per month. So that looks down the road, that's going to be some costs incurred, and we'll talk about that later. But what we need to do is, and kind of what I'm doing right now, is evaluating what do we already have for infrastructure. For instance, we have Langsburg. Okay, they have a pretty good, well set up recycling operation, and myself and Commissioner Emery are going to tour it. I've already been out there once, but they asked us to come back. The landfill actually has a recycling site, which they've temporarily moved to Great Lakes Fusion, but they're going to move it back to the landfill. So you already have 2 locations without, our potential for partnerships. So we wouldn't have to build a physical plant, and then, we're going to have to staff it, but that would be some kind of partnership that we have with those organizations. So those benchmarks are down the road. So we're looking at, I think when we have to have that in place is it's either 2029 or 2032. So it's not tomorrow, okay? But in the meantime, and on a shorter time frame, by July 6th, we have to file a notice of intent to our intentions of what we're going to do. We're either going to write our own plan, or would we partner with other counties? Well, the will of this board was to go to do it ourselves, and that's what all the other counties did anyway, so it really didn't matter. So I have to notify those counties. Commissioner Broder has been signing the letters that we basically said, thank you, but we're going on our own. Look forward to sharing information with you. So we have to do that. Secondly, we have to formulate a work plan, which our consultant that you've already retained is working with us on. And so those two items have to happen, and I'm hoping in July, because what we were told at the conference that Commissioner Emery and I were at is we may not be looking at any state funding until 2025. And that is unacceptable, because I've already got a ton of resources and time into this program, and we're just trying to get it set up and off the ground. So once again, it's a state underfunded mandate, and right now it's a state zero funded mandate until they can get us some money, and the funding from the state is going to be $60,000 a year. And of course they said that it's guaranteed as long as they put it in the budget every year. And so we're like, okay, that's wonderful. But for the first 3 years, it's $60,000 plus 50 cents per capita. So for us, that's going to be about $34,000 additional. That's about $94,000. Now that's good, but also that money has to be used to facilitate this plan that's being written by our consultant, Fleiss and Vandenbrink, and that is not going to be cheap. So,
You already approved, it's been part of that.
yeah, that's already been approved. So we're at the point where we have to get started, and so we've already done a lot of legwork in the health department, and Commissioner Emery's, we learned a lot. So we're moving that way. Some other areas of the county have curbside recycling. For instance, Corona now has it under single hauler. So that's kind of cutting into that 10,000 per capita that we have to hit. I mean, we have the northwest part of the county, the southwest part of the county. There's areas that we're going to have to figure out where we're going to have to set these drop sites up. And then you can't just leave it as unmanned, because what happened in Morrison Perry is everybody just brought their garbage. So we can't do that. And we're not going to
Just interrupt you for a minute. We did, at the Morris transfer station, we did have recycling set up, and it had nice containers, steel containers, everything, but it was not manned long enough, and people misused it, were throwing garbage in where they should be for the recycling. They were avoiding the cost of taking your stuff to the transfer station, the compactor. So it is really significant. I'll say this too, we have to keep in mind, we've been handed this requirement as a fait accompli. We don't have a choice in it, so we got to deal with the recycling. And not to say that there aren't good elements to it, but the fact is that we have to proceed with this, and I'm pleased that Larry and his department are going to be involved in getting this off the ground. I understand there is the landfill, huge landfill to the east, which I remember, well, we didn't litigate over, but it was involved back when I was doing, we called it solid waste then, and the emphasis was on the waste. Now, see, it's materials. It's a more pleasant phrase, materials that we can reuse and recycle. But basically, it's still a lot of garbage. But we have to, so we got to address that. But I understand that the landfill does generate some money because of waste management. Yeah, and so. Yeah, we found out at the meeting that the money from the state is not going to be forthcoming very quickly, and so we may have to deal with the issue of that money.
Yeah, so the landfill pays the county minimum $75,000 a year. They do it in quarterly payments. Initially, that money was set up in a contract that was for the community development department to have a county planner and do this kind of stuff, solid waste and recycling. And that kind of fell by the wayside, it got privatized, and then the county was sort of just kind of taking it, and waste management's like, wait, what's going on here? And so then, then I got involved, and this was years ago, and then we started putting it into the household hazardous waste program, which we are still using it for, entire collections and electronic waste and so on and so forth. So, but that money right now is not guaranteed every year. So, unless we, and Brian and I have talked about that.
It is.
I'd like to, more to come on that. But that is one source that could assist us, especially with the staffing resources that we're having to use right now, and that does not come from the general fund. That's from
Yeah, our problem in Perry Morris, we did not staff it sufficiently to make sure that people complied with the requirements. So that's, and if this, these kind of monies are available to get us through this initial phase would be, but we don't have the same staffing issue before we start, but the point is, we may need some of that kind of help.
Appreciate that.
Couple questions there, if I may. I know today all we're doing is moving on a resolution, but it's almost bookkeeping stuff we have to do. I don't know if the state has given us any more details on what we're going to be required to do. I would certainly be interested in, are there sanctions for not doing this? What are they going to require us to recycle? My understanding early on was that they were wanting to reduce they're going to decide on whether they met their goals by going with weight rather than volume. Well, that means that what you want to do is concentrate on recycling heavy stuff, which is often already done. You know, can we take over some of the metals recycling that's already being done anyway to get there? A whole lot of questions. Have they clarified any of this?
No, they're still building this thing as they've unleashed it on us. They're still building it down there.
Do we make a plan without knowing what we're
They
planning?
have, what they're doing with the plans is they put out a template for all of the consultants to look at, and that's like a baseline. And so our consultant from Fleiss has already been working on that. And it's gonna be a lot of input from the materials management board. How fast do we wanna move? How slow do we wanna move? It's gonna be a long slog. This thing is not gonna be, it's gonna be a long haul.
They haven't told us what they want us to recycle yet.
Well, so they've approved the bill, and the bill was signed into law. So now it's gonna have to go through all the rulemaking procedures under the Administrative Procedures Act. So that could take some time, which is also why they've given us to, what was it, 2032?
Yeah, it's pushed up.
You know, that's why there's distance to it, and I think they're trying to gauge right now how many individuals are participating on their own, how many are going to combine with others, and then how many are going to be relying on the state. So for example, in our area, since no one wants to combine and work together, they're all doing them independently. Well, if everyone's doing them independently, there's probably not a big focus on writing rules for joint ventures, at least at the beginning, right? So they're gonna have some time of writing these, and I think there's a lot of angst about getting started and moving, but I think this is a kind of a brisk walk, not a run to get to the finish line.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things to write our own plan is if we turned it down and denied it and sent it back to the state, they would write it for us. And in that, doing that, they would forbid any future landfill expansions out here at Venice Park, which is not acceptable because Venice Park has a lot of land that they purchased for future expansion. So that was never going to be an option for us not to write a plan.
Oh, I agree. I just don't know what in the world you can get started on when we have no idea where we're going.
Well, the first thing
Let's
is
get
first.
going. Let's get going on vacation. Where are we going? I don't know. Let's get going though.
We'll jump in the car and we'll drive and go somewhere.
You know, it's,
No,
Let's be clear though, about one thing, and this came out in the conference last week. There are plenty of ideas out there, many of which we would find unacceptable, I think. And but if we don't grab control of this to the extent that we can, we would be more subject, I think, to those possible.
100%. I agree 100%.
yeah.
I'd be very unhappy with the outcome.
It just seems for now a slow walk is going to be the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Until we know what in the world we're doing.
And
They're
that's
telling us.
That's what we're gonna do. The reason I'm moving this month is because we have the deadline set for July that we have to meet. And I wanna get the clock ticking on the state funding. And I have to do those two things, the notice of an intent and the work plan, before I can even be eligible. And then she told me that they might take up to 6 months to review that. And I'm like,
And most of
okay.
these
Talk
things,
about slow walking.
Yeah.
That's
So-
a word. That's one word per month.
well, one of these things with a lot of the state programs is first in, first out. So if we submit our resolution and and our meetings are relatively early as opposed to the end, or if we wait until it's due in July, and we get it uploaded, hopefully we'll hear back sooner than later as we, move forward on this. So the resolution is the key part of this month's activity, that we're saying we're gonna do it ourselves and we're creating the board to do it. We're not actually doing anything besides saying we will do something.
Pretty good.
So Larry, I had one question.
Planning to plan.
Is there any potential that you're aware of marketing these recyclables to recoup some of
Yes.
the cost?
There is, and it's what we were learning about. There are quite a few markets out there, believe it or not, for some of this stuff. Now, some of it not so much anymore. Like for instance, a lot of the plastics used to be bought by China. That got ended, so that drove down that market. But there's market for glass, repurposing it. What else did we learn about? Putting stuff into pavement. Putting stuff into concrete. I mean, there's all kinds of different things. They're doing some with composting and food waste.
Composting is a
Huge one.
thing,
Yeah, so there are markets out there, and Langsburg's a really good resource to learn about some of the things they're doing, because they are getting paid for some of the stuff. I don't think they're making a profit on it, because it's not
Right.
going to be set up to be profitable.
But still, if we could recoup any
Recoup some of the costs.
of the costs.
Right. That's a great point.
This is kind of the future, but you're gonna have to buy some ground to have different places to deposit those
I'm hoping
items?
not. I'm hoping not. If we can partner,
This-
if we can work with Langsburg, if we can reactivate Perry, that's a great location.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to have at least 6, 8 of them in the county to spread them out.
Yeah, I'm thinking we
And
can
not-
get less. I think we're gonna get away with maybe 4.
Oh,
So that'd be,
there's not a distance how far you can go?
you gotta do it regional to your county. So if you
Oh,
break the
oh.
county down by 10,000 people,
Oh,
it's
okay.
essentially commissioner districts.
Oh, okay.
If you think about the county. So, I'm a little worried about northwest part, Fairfield and that area up there. I don't know where we're gonna go with that one, but, City of Wausau's gonna be covered, Corona's covered, Duran's covered. So your population base are already covered by curbside. We just have to get to those rural, residents. That's gonna be our focus, because we're a rural county.
I think a lot of this, my experience having been on the state government side for so long is a lot of times they will look to the local communities to come up with plans, and the one site for 10,000 people. I've seen situations where they've given some latitude, especially if, as Larry says, there are partnership agreements and it's a smooth operation, that it could cover us, maybe even without the exact numerical.
And to answer your question, Greg, I don't see an enforcement mechanism on this once we write our plan and they come in and say, we're not doing anything, what are you gonna do? Well, they're obviously gonna pull the funding. I don't see any statutory punishment in there. So they're dealing with that, and I pointed it out. I'm like, but we have to do the plan to protect our landfill area and what we have. So, we'll see, that's down the road though. So, that's all I've got for this. Any other questions?
All right, so we have the motion on the floor to approve this resolution. Do we have any more discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed the same, then that will move to tomorrow for final approval.
Yes. Madam Chair, before you do
Yes.
the next one, strike the name Gary Burke. He has declined to participate.
All right, he is stricken.
So that leaves us with 11, and that's exactly the number in the statute. I've contacted all of them and they wish to serve. They were previously on the now defunct solid waste board. And so per statute, we matched them to a category that best fits their expertise and experiences. So it worked out.
Can I say something about and preparing the oaths of office for these positions? it was brought to my attention, and I know Morgan and I have tried to work very diligently in getting those appointees to come in and take those oaths, and a majority of them don't. So if whoever's communicating, they have to come in and take the oath of office, so that, or they can't vote at those meetings.
Do we put that on the letter?
And so we do have a very difficult time getting them to come in.
I'll make sure they come in.
It's in the letter to them.
I know.
But this will be exactly the same staggered terms as if the solid waste board continues. So it's not all of these people will be up at the same time. It'll just be like the other one changed his name and continued. So some of them have a 2-year appointment left, 4-year appointments, et cetera, et cetera.
You know what I think about the solid waste board? Joe DeCare was on that board.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, and he loved to give the solid waste report, even though they didn't meet. So,
I like Joe.
I know. All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve the appointment of the following people to the Shiawassee County Materials Management Planning Committee. Commissioner Tom Emery, Cody Baker, Dennis Braid, Rick Crawford, Terry McLeod, John Gall, Chris Clahoun, Dan Sargent, Christina Ardeling, Jerry Haber, and Brian Marks.
Support.
Moved and supported, I'll support that. Any discussion?
Just to note again that their terms will just be as if the other one continued, so they can keep them staggered and rotated.
Okay, and Larry is in charge of the oath enforcement?
I'm gonna get them into Caroline to make sure we're on.
Yeah, that might be important, and that's a good point.
Tentatively, we're looking at June 18th is the first meeting. Tuesday, June 18th at 6 p.m. It would be right in here. I'm trying to plan all these meetings so that they don't fall on any other county meetings, so that there are no conflicts with the space.
And we do try to have the oaths done and prepared, so that when the final meeting has happened, they can come in the very next day and we have them ready.
Okay, good.
Oh, not fast.
Got that. All right, all those, oh, did you have something else?
I had something.
Oh, go ahead.
Should we review these to make sure that these are the best to accomplish what our goals are in this material plan? I know they're carryover, and maybe that's a good chance to review and make sure, maybe open it up to other applicants and make sure we pick the best people from the public.
So you can do that. You have that ability. That's up to this board. In deference to them, since they were already serving, I reached out to all of them just to see if they wish to continue, and then I matched them to the category because the categories are set in the statute.
Okay.
You have to have them in each of those slots. So, you know.
Are these were they the same categories?
No,
Previously?
they were not.
Okay.
Some were a little different. Some of them are the same, but some are different. There was more general public. It was just straight up general public. It was
I think there was a city, there was
City,
a county,
county.
there was a township,
waste hauler.
a waste hauler, but
So-
then the other ones like regional planning, solid waste disposal facility, environmental organization, materials recovery, and those down the list were not part of that. That was added by the statute. Because our most recent set that we appointed was Mr. Haber to fill a city position 6 months ago, or so. So it's up to the board if however you wish to proceed with the appointments or not. I mean, the important thing that you did do is moving the resolution to create it for them. So however you wish to go.
I almost think that it's a new board, there's a lot of changes, maybe some emotions out there, and maybe we should open it up and let people apply if they so wish. And
Well, ultimately, I think the appointments are chairman appointments.
sure.
So
We've looked over this and at the categories, and given how little we know about the work that needs to be done, we have a nice mix of people's skills and experience. I'm fairly comfortable, but if the board would rather hold off and look at this, I'm not quite sure what we're going to look at as far as what we need when we don't know what we need. So we have a pretty good mix of skills here, and as you said, there might be emotion on this, but not a lot of facts.
And
And
the only
it doesn't
other-
sound like we're in a rush either.
Well, we
It-
are
we
to an
have some time.
extent. We are to an extent. I need to do something by July 6th, so that would push me really tight into June if I had to delay this a month, because and then try to set that meeting and say, well, we think you might get appointed, but it would be decided in June.
I thought the resolution was what we needed to do by July.
But I also have to have that board convene, because they have to approve the notice of intent before I submit it to the state. And not only that, they have to approve the work plan, which, as Greg said,
Okay.
is gonna be very.
I've only had one person approach me and want to be on this board, and that person is going to be Jerry.
That was a city related thing. I mean, some of them are very specific, some of them are.
But I think we have to keep in mind, or recall that the point is made about the differences. It is a substantial shift in thinking from the old days of solid waste to materials handling and recovery. So it is a significant change. I'm not questioning any of the people, and people who are interested in solid waste then, I'm sure will carry that over, but there is a difference in, it's not just emphasis, it's more significant, that it's substantive change from throwing stuff away and finding a way to reuse it and so on. So your point is well taken, that it is
The many of these people served on the solid waste board for many years and have experience in building these plans. A few of them were on it when they wrote the plan 20 years ago. And one of them was on it 40 years ago when the plan was written. So these are experienced people with this issue.
Who was that?
Rick was on it since they built the landfill. Rick Bronson.
He may have been on a long time, but you're talking about Rick, the chairman, and I just met him for the first time, but his thinking aligns with the changes. Let me put it this way, he seems to understand the changes that are being required of us now by this new legislation. So,
Well, and it does sound that time is a bit of the essence, which I also didn't understand, so.
Well, you have a meeting in June if you.
Well,
I think
would
we
just
should move
assume-
forward.
Yeah,
We move forward.
I
and-
think
And we'll
so.
vote on it tomorrow, and if the board doesn't want to vote on it tomorrow, we'll vote on it tomorrow. No's and yes. Let's not talk it to death.
Point taken, Gary. All right, all those in favor of moving this to tomorrow signify by saying aye. All those opposed, the same. And we will decide on that tomorrow. Our next agenda item is to adopt the 2023 Health Department Annual Report and place it on file. I would accept a motion for that.
I'll move. I'll
All right.
support.
Moved and supported.
Well, I hope you all had a chance to look at it. I just wanted to, there's a few highlights. I like to have a nice looking annual report each year. And this is just a real testament to everything the health department did over the past year. So you can see all the different programs we do. We are in so many things that you just wouldn't even imagine. And you can't have a report in a successful department without great staff. So there's lots of highlights in here for some of the special programs over the first few pages. I highlight a few in my message on the inside cover. I hope you all take the time to read it, share it amongst your constituents.
Are you ever gonna update your picture here?
Well, we change it. Those are stock photos.
From high school, college?
Oh, no, that was from 2008. That was my leadership Shiawassee picture.
I mean, it's nice, it is.
I love the same as in 2008 too.
I'm getting back to that now.
If we can make the next one in color, that'd be appreciated.
We just want it bigger.
Anything you want to highlight, or?
No, just like the things in the beginning, like the Narcan box, the breastfeeding award, the Midwest Regional Award for our breastfeeding staff. They were invited to be speakers at a national conference, and so that's exciting for how that's going with our breastfeeding crew. And then the health event that we held was really successful. We brought in different partners to deliver vaccines, physicals, all things for back to school. So we're going to do that again this year. No, that's all I have.
Oh, good, thank you. All those in favor of approving this for tomorrow signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Which brings us to our last agenda item. I would entertain a motion to approve the contract between MSU and the Health Department for river cleanup in an amount of $5,000 and direct the board chair to execute the same.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported.
Annual river cleanup grant. The health department received this grant for about 12 years straight between 2008 and 2019. And then the pandemic hit and it kind of stopped. We weren't able to take it on. The Friends of the River approached us this year and asked if we'd be willing to do it. I said sure. It basically provides a little extra funding to run the cleanup for supplies. There is a little staff time built into it. It's $5,000 in grant money, and it's a really great partnership. And that's for the river cleanup, which will be held the week of July 20th to 27th. And that corresponds with our tire collection, our scrap tire collection, which will be, I think, on Saturday, July 27th. We do recycle tires from the river free of charge. So if we find any tires in the river, we take them at the collection. Really popular event. I mean, we're getting 150, 200 volunteers to come out. They clean their own stretches, they clean at their own schedule. It used to be kind of condensed into one morning, but that got to be too convoluted, so this works better. Different crews going on different days, and it's just a great week of community coming together to keep the river clean. And the river is in really good shape compared to when we started this.
So that does work. That was kind of my question, having it the whole week.
Mm-hmm.
So do you coordinate that then?
Yeah, so the Friends coordinate it. They have an online app where you can sign up and let them know which stretch you're covering, so it's not getting covered twice. It's really, really neat how they do it to register their volunteers. It's modern technology. I would encourage everybody to come on out.
Right, any questions on the river cleanup? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. And that moves on to tomorrow. Do we have anything else for this committee? We're adjourned.